Welcome to the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Remember, we're also brought to you by Tiger's Lair MAA, your source for all your martial arts training needs in the Mesa, Arizona area. They are just west of the Power and Baseline intersection. Come check them out. And guess what? Classes are open. Are training right now. Lockdown is over. So come on out. We're going to be doing all kinds of great deals. Got to get those memberships back up. Of course, just like everybody, you know, feeling the hurt from the growing pains from the whole lockdown thing. Now, really quick, guys, I want to get into this. We're going to talk a little bit about a new illness that is infecting a lot of the Jiu-Jitsu community. It's a new germ or new virus, whatever you want to call it, and it is FoVid-2020 or FOMO virus 2020. It's the fear of missing out in 2020, and it's infecting a ton of people in the Jiu-Jitsu community. Okay, guys, let me tell you what I mean. All right. So a ton of you all are already becoming Jiu-Jitsu hypocrites, and you're essentially shaming and using shaming tactics against your fellow Jiu-Jitsu practitioners who want to go out and train. You're basically trying to shame them into not training, and it's all based on your fear. Okay, whatever your fear is based on, whether it's fear for yourself or whether it be fear for one of your loved ones. Now, how do I know that this is all a fear-based argument and that you are, in fact, being Jiu-Jitsu hypocrites? Because the vast majority of you who are shaming your brethren in the Jiu-Jitsu community for wanting to train are also tuning in to a few Jiu-Jitsu or grappling events and MMA events, specifically Submission Underground. Okay, there was a Submission Underground at the end of March, right about the time the lockdowns first began. Submission Underground, I believe it was 12. Yep, that was it. And then there was also the Submission Underground 13, and that was the big one with Craig Jones and Vinny Magalhaes. And then, of course, we had the Ferguson-Gaethje fight that came up. And then right after that, of course, had UFC Jacksonville. Now, a ton of you watched these and tuned into these. Okay? So, on the one hand, you're shaming your brethren for wanting to train Jiu-Jitsu, but on the other hand, you're tuning in to watch professionals compete. Now, if you're somebody who's deluded yourself into believing that these professionals were self-isolated until they trained and they did no sparring or anything of the sort before it was time for fight night, I don't know what to tell you, but that, man, you really pulled the wool over your own eyes. Either that, or somehow you've rationalized that these professionals, their rights and their freedoms and their passion for Jiu-Jitsu has more validity than my rights and your training partner's rights and their validity to want, their passion to want to train. And I find that extremely sad and disappointing. Here's the thing, guys. Your fear of training should not supersede my right to train. Okay? I don't understand this fear of... And this is what I mean when I say you have a fear of missing out. You've contracted this illness. Because the thing is that it's not so much, I can see that it's not so much that you don't want to train or that you don't believe people should be training because you're watching these events. The problem is because you can't train, whether that be from pressure from your governor, pressure from your spouse or your family members, or because you have a fear that you could get sick, or that you have a fear that you somehow indirectly would contribute to one of your beloved family members that you're probably self-isolating from, like your grandma, grandpa, or something like that. That somehow indirectly, because you chose to come out of lockdown, that's like disrespecting their life or something like that. So because you have that fear, you want everybody else to also put their life on hold because you don't want to miss out. But you're not going to miss out, are you? Because when the fights are put on pay-per-view or they're put on Fight Pass, oh, you're right there watching them. So this is how I know that you're being a jiu-jitsu hypocrite, okay? You have contracted the fear of missing out virus, the FoVid-2020, homie. That's what you have contracted. And you need to shake it. You need to shake that virus, because it's going to eat you up, dude. Now, I'm going to be real with you guys. I didn't do a lot of videos because the YouTube powers that be have been taking down videos left and right, and I've been extremely frustrated with this lockdown. I have done a lot of my own research. I am formally educated. I do have a bachelor's degree in engineering, so I do understand how to do the math. I do understand how to read papers. I do understand how scientific papers are written, okay? I have understanding. That being said, anybody could have the understanding. And I'm really getting tired of the argument that only the formally educated should have any kind of sense to make a decision, okay? You can read, you can comprehend, you can get a dictionary, thesaurus, or use Google to look up words you don't understand. There's no reason for you not to be educated. No reason for you not to educate yourself on a topic. I've read a ton. So I'm very frustrated with this lockdown. I feel like it was completely baseless. I feel like it did absolutely nothing other than kill the economy and nearly kill, the gym that I train at. That's what I feel. That's the only thing I feel like it did. It put a bunch of fear in a bunch of people, and that's essentially it. Okay, that's what I see. The data is pretty conclusive. Even those that are still for the lockdown, even the experts that still think that a lockdown is great and we should stay locked down till there's a vaccine or a cure or whatever they're trying to sell today. Even those that still recommend that, they still don't deny the data, and they don't deny the fact. And the fact is that unless you're in a very small subset of people, being that you're 65 years or older and already have a underlying serious illness, that it is extremely unlikely that you would die from the coronavirus. It's extremely unlikely, and the healthier you are, the less likely that you would. And not saying that it's impossible, okay? There's no such thing as zero, but it approaches zero. And this is, again, what I'm saying. Like, you don't have to be formally educated, but if you go look up on Google, or you even get on YouTube and you watch a couple of videos on what it means when, a limit approaches zero, okay? That means that at the very tail end, and it's like the bell curve they were talking about, okay? They wanted to flatten it. Guess what, guys? It's flat. It's been flat for quite a while, okay? There's really, the whole flattening the curve was to not overwhelm the health system. Well, the health system is about to collapse because we don't have any patients in there paying any money to do anything, because they canceled all the elective, quote unquote, elective surgeries, okay? If you didn't know, some of those elective surgeries were still pretty serious things to get done, like lumps, in mom's breast, and cysts, and and rebuilt, knees and hips and biopsies and, all these kind of things. Like those things, while they're considered optional because they don't have to be done because you're not going to die tomorrow if they're not done, but you can still die from the things that they are not performing, if that makes sense. So because all those things are not being done, right, because of all these procedures that are not being done right now, we're actually creating a crisis in our hospitals. But anyhow, I digress. You can go look up the information if you need to understand what it means to approach zero, okay? I'm encouraging you to do that, okay? There's never going to be such a thing as zero risk. There's always going to be some form of risk involved when we're talking about an illness. That being said, even the experts that are saying that we need a vaccine, that we need to still be careful, blah, 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 even they still agree that it's a very small subset of people that are going to die from this particular virus. So I've been very, very frustrated, guys. I've been extremely frustrated. And I haven't put out videos because I didn't want to get things taken down or my channel removed. It seems like YouTube is starting to get a little more relaxed and allow that people are going to have conversations back and forth and disagree. Wow, imagine that. So I'm here to tell you guys, okay? So here's the thing, guys. If you're being a jiu-jitsu hypocrite, it's time for you to lay it down, walk away from it, stop being a hypocrite, move on. Everybody's waiting for you to come around and start training again, okay? Nobody's going to hold, ill will. Let's get to training, guys. And if you can't train because you are sick or you take care of somebody who is immune compromised, well, guess what? Most likely you wouldn't have been able to train anyway, okay? You shouldn't have probably been training in the first place because we get ringworm and staph and all kinds of nasty stuff when we train on the mats. Well, I never have, but it's possible, right? Like I said, risk approaching zero, it's still possible. So that's really what I feel like you guys should do. Biggest thing I've taken away from this is that, as it applies to jiu-jitsu, is that we really need to not look to black belts to be experts on things that they're not. I saw a lot of black belts that disagreed with one another on a lot of things. Keenan Cornelius, kind of throwing fire at the Danaher guys, and Danaher talking about him having to control his guys and they should be quarantining and blah, blah, blah. And, the reality is that, he needs to take care of him and let the Danaher squad take care of Danaher squad, right? And that's how life should be. So, we can't look at black belts as though they know the answers to everything at all times. That's just not the case. So, anyhow, guys, that's what I got for this episode. I just wanted to put this out really quick because I know I haven't put out a video in quite a while. Going to do a follow-up, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things going on in the sports world, what kind of impact this is going to have on the rest of sports for the rest of the season. And, of course, I want to talk a little bit about the Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson fight. As a lot of you may know, I'm a pretty big Ferguson fan, so I was pretty sad for Tony that he got it handed to him. I mean, he got it handed to him. And talk a little bit about the fight and technically what I think happened and what went on in that fight. And exactly what were some of the mistakes that Tony made that didn't even give him a chance to win the fight, didn't keep him competitive. So we'll talk about that in hopefully the next episode. And other than that, guys, we'll catch you later. Remember, be practical, be purposeful, get fit with a purpose.